Good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and essentially support entrepreneurs in improving financial literacy and accessing capital. So, with that being said, we have our brief agenda today. We're going to roll out, announce, launch the Business Accelerator program. So, what I think you would agree is most small business owners, they need money to start, to grow, to reach their potential. I think that's a fact. Now, what do you and I know? There's two options. We can either buy a solution or build a solution. The Shelf Corp is great for those entrepreneurs that want to buy a solution. They want a fundable business, a business in a box, ready to go to funding. And that's a big part of what we do, is helping clients just step right in to a fundable business, a fundable Shelf Corp, and we can go to funding immediately thereafter. However, what we're seeing is some clients, they don't want that. They want the build option. And the build option is now referred to as the Business Accelerator. So we're going to describe what that means, how that works, and if you want to be a reseller, how you're paid. So we're going to launch the Business Accelerator program today, answer your questions. Go ahead and type them into the Q&A. And we want to make sure those of you that are resellers that you're getting paid today. And if you're a participant, we want to make sure that you're getting your first tranche of funding, if not today, right away. And we're going to dig into what that FTF, first tranche funding, means, look at some common examples of amount, and then, of course, we can either buy or build a fundable business so we can go for the larger amount. So we're rolling out business accelerators, and I think it's interesting to hear what other people are saying about business accelerators, and we'll certainly go through and describe what that means. So one of our board members, Nir, here's the quote that Nir contributed. He says, these sort of accelerators can be a catalyst for economic development. And it was the commitment of institutions, of governments, both state and local, to really help drive economic development. So as we're rolling out this business accelerator solution, we are thrilled to be able to work with state and federal governments, banks, financial institutions. There's just a whole ecosystem that is committed to helping small businesses get the funding that they need to start, to grow, to reach their potential. So Nir, thank you for your contributions. Ruth also wanted us to share a message, and Ruth says, the Business Accelerator is being announced as the administration of President Donald Trump is seeking to cancel or reduce federal grants and funding. So we will be seeking to fill the gap left behind by reduced government assistance. So that's not a political statement, but it's a reality, right? We're in a period of time where our federal government is shrinking in terms of resources and in terms of jobs. And so this is an incredibly important time for you and I to be able to help individuals fix their problems, because if you want business funding, you need a fundable business, and we can help them either through a buy or a build. A buy means a Shelf Corp. Most of you have a landing page that looks like this, and this is a great way to drive people in if they're interested in a Shelf Corp. Make sure everyone has their landing page. If not, get with Madison. Or we can build through the accelerator. So let's go into more about how the accelerator works. So in terms of background on business accelerators, if that sounds a little foreign or something that you're not quite familiar with, they used to commonly be referred to as incubators. So that's where small businesses would go to receive the resources and support and assistance to move from a very early stage to being fundable. The word incubator is used less frequently now. Now it's typically considered a business accelerator. So as the second bullet states, these are ideal for already formed businesses that lack the credibility, the fundability to get the funding that they want. So, in other words, if there's an entrepreneur and they don't have a business at all, the Shelf Corp is probably still the way to go, right? Because the Shelf Corp provides the entity, the EIN, it has the entire package. But when you're speaking with an entrepreneur that already has a business, but that business lacks fundability, then the accelerator is probably the better solution. So do you see the difference? If the client doesn't have a business, in most cases, the Shelf Corp is the way to go. If they already have a business, but it's not yet fundable, then the accelerator. And we'll go through what's included in the accelerator. And frankly, a lot of what's included in the accelerator is what's included in the Shelf Corp because it makes sense, right? Our goal is to help clients get funding. To get funding, we need to be fundable, and that doesn't change in the buy versus build. It's just what do they need from us versus what do they already have. Make sense? Now, again, just like with the Shelf Corps, we do not want clients spending money out of pocket. So the Shelf Corps have no out of pocket cost as stated on the landing page. Also, the accelerator program, no out of pocket cost. So we don't want to have to screen people out that have dreams, that have visions, but can't afford it. No, there's no out of pocket cost for either. All right, so let's move on. Let's go ahead and go through what is actually included in the accelerator program. One of the first things that we're going to really focus on is getting them some seed capital now. I know your world's a lot different, but a lot of these people come to us and they need some funding now. Sure, they want to have a fundable business and all the bells and whistles to go after the larger amounts, but in many cases, these individuals need some working capital, some seed capital now. So we're going to have a lot of focus on getting them some money in their pocket right away. And I'll give you some examples of that in just a moment. We're going to also provide them an office address. Well, why is that important? Because it matters. If a business is trying to get a business loan, the lenders care about is the business set up properly, which includes is it in good standing with the state and federal government? Does it have a legitimate commercial address? And in many cases, the lenders are not just looking at the address, but looking for an underlying lease because and that has to do with some of the underwriting and the way that the repayment works. But the bottom line is having a credible address is important, and that is included. We're going to help these clients through the accelerator program build a loan package. Now, when I go through this list, I realize this might not be the most popular or most exciting list you've ever seen, but it's the truth. It's what's needed to get business funding, and that's what you and I are tasked with, is helping entrepreneurs qualify for funding. So do they need a good office address? They do. Maybe it's not important to them, but it's important to the lender. So it's important to us because we're guaranteeing them funding. The loan package, everything from having a good business plan. And we commonly see people will take a stab at developing their own business plan, and that's great. But rarely are they producing what the lender wants to see. We know what the lenders want to see. We actually use the same business plan software that we provide for free to all the participants that we used when we worked at the SBA. So this is top-notch business plan. We need financial projections. And again, commonly what entrepreneurs will come up with on their own is inadequate. They'll come up with some loose projections, but it's rarely thorough. It's rarely enough to meet the lender's criteria. So what are we going to do? We're going to provide that full loan package. And that's, of course, free. Free. Some clients come to us and they've not managed their credit well. And what we know is everyone has a reason for not paying their bills as promised or having too high a utilization. You and I are not here to judge. But the bottom line is personal credit can play a role with some funding. Not all funding, some will be purely on the business side. So since we know that that can be an issue in some cases, what we're going to do is go ahead and assist them with that for free if needed. A big part of the accelerator program, as I mentioned early on, is building financial literacy. So many of these folks, they don't have the background that you have, Dominique, or that you have, Ernest, or that you have, Floyd. A lot of these folks, they don't know what they need to know. They don't even know that they don't know what they need to know. So, anyone that's going through the accelerator program will have access to free educational trainings to build their financial literacy. And again, I realize that this checklist, which I know we've not completed yet, this isn't necessarily what's the most exciting, what's the most sexy that's going to draw people in, but it's what it takes to get the end result. Therefore, that's what we're going to provide. They're not required to go through the trainings, but encouraged to and free. Just like we talked about how credit can be a problem, we're going to build the credit of the business owner if needed, and that's free. We're also going to build the credit of the business by adding trade lines. But separate from that, we're also going to build the collateral, the assets of the business, because again, that is an important element for loan approval. Most lenders for traditional business loans want to see the balance sheet of the client, of the borrower, which we're going to provide, that's up here along with the financials. And they want to see that there's enough collateral being pledged that if for some reason, some ungodly reason, that the borrower doesn't pay back, the lender can mitigate the risk. We know that often small business owners lack collateral, called a collateral shortfall. So we provide that, and we provide that for free. And then ultimately, of course, we want to go to funding, right? The end goal is to go to funding. So many people will come to us and they're like, well, let's skip everything up here. Let's skip all of that. Well, maybe not the first one. Give me some money now. Oh, give me some money now. Give me a bunch more from my business. And let's skip all of this. Well, it doesn't work that way, right? We have to have a credible, a fundable business. So those of us that are on the business development side, that's our toughest challenge, is because a lot of people, they don't have the financial literacy. They don't realize the importance of all these middle bullets. But the bottom line is we can provide them seed capital now, which we're going to go into next. We can get them prepared for a large capital raise, but we're going to also provide everything needed between now and then. All right, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about this, because I've had several questions and it's important to understand how we deliver on this. So we're going to call this the first tranche funding, FTF. That's the seed capital, the initial funding that clients get right away. Not that they have to wait for the business to be ready, it's right away. So it's that initial round. And that's relevant whether they're going through the Business Accelerator or the Shelf Corp. So what happens is we send an app to the client once they have enrolled with us in either of the two programs. It's a simple one-page app, no hard inquiries. So we're going to use a case study, and this is a real person, a real client. I didn't give you her first full name, but her last name is Kim and her first initial is Y. So we'll just call her Mrs. Kim. So Mrs. Kim, and we picked this one just because it was one that was late Friday afternoon and it matched when we were putting this together, the notes. So Miss Kim came in, filled out the app, and she received 78 different offers for seed capital. 78. So that's a lot. I mean, to you, I'm sure that's not very impressive, but that's giving the client a lot of options. You might say, well, what do those offers look like? Well, the interest rates varied. Some were lower interest rates, some were higher. Client can pick. Client's going to get interest rates that match their credibility. But let's look at some of the offers that she received. She received a $26,000 offer with a 5-year repayment term. She received a $25,000 offer with a 4-year repayment term. 23,000, 22, 20. So she can stack as many of these as she wants. Now you might say, well, wait. This doesn't seem right. Why don't we just go get her a $500,000 loan? Well, you're thinking about this bottom bullet. Once the business is fundable, that's exactly what we want to do. We want to go for a large business loan. Sure. But when the client first comes to us, we're talking about first bullet. Where are they at now? Because we've not done all of these things yet. They literally, Miss Kim just literally signed up that morning, right? So we need time to do this. If it's a shelf corp, we can provide everything in about a week. If we're going to take them through the accelerator, it takes about 4 weeks because it takes longer to build something than it does just to transfer. So yeah, I'm with you where we're going in the end, but here we're talking about what can they get right now, right away. So she literally ended up with over $200,000, I guess probably close to 300,000 or 400,000 that she could pick from. So first tranche funding, also called seed capital, is what clients get right now when they first come in. And then we help them have a fundable business. Takes about 1 week with the shelf, about 4 weeks with the accelerator program. Why does it take longer? Because we're building out everything, of course. Then we can go for the larger business funding. And that's what we call the second tranche funding. So with the second tranche funding, now we can go for the large term loans. Those could be multiple millions of dollars. If they're interested in lines of credit, which we would recommend that they also have a line of credit. If they're looking for business credit cards, that's great. Business automobiles. This is my business automobile, nothing impressive, but we recommend that each of you have a business credit card. Each of you have a business automobile. Each of you have a business line of credit. And then, of course, the large term loan should be the amount that matches what your needs are, which we call the uses of funds. And the uses of funds is outlined in the business plan. So let's pause for a moment. We've covered a lot, but I want to go through and answer any questions that you have so far. So what have we covered so far, which has been a lot? We've talked about the rollout of the Business Accelerator program. It's great for clients that already have a business, but the business isn't fundable or it's not fundable enough to get the amount that they want. We've talked about what's included in the Business Accelerator program. There's absolutely no upfront cost. We've talked about the value add of getting these clients their first tranche of funding right away. The amount that they receive will be based upon their credibility, of course. I mean, that's the way the world works. We're going to build the credibility of the business to get a large amount in 1 week with the shelf for 4 weeks with the accelerator. But initially, it's as they come to us. And we've had a couple people say, well, no one gets first tranche funding. Well, that's crazy talk, right? That's almost suggesting, oh, lenders don't loan money. Of course they do. Lenders loan money to qualified borrowers. So they come to us as they are, and then we help them build a fundable business by going through the process. Any questions on that? All right. Ben brings up a good point. Yeah. So not everyone wants an SBA loan, nor are we forcing that. And frankly, not everyone would necessarily be best suited for an SBA loan. We just went through, Ben, the example of the different types of funding. And this here, Ben, would I guess meet what you're speaking of. You're right. Some people don't want a term loan. They just want a line of credit. Some people just want business credit cards. Some people just want business automobiles. What we'd like to do is to build a fundable business so they have access to all four. But you're right, Ben, we're not forcing it down their throat. If they don't want a multi-million-dollar term loan, they can skip it. But what we're doing here in this process is relevant regardless of which type of funding instrument they want. And maybe I didn't make that clear. That's my fault. All right, so those of you that are interested in being a reseller, I know that your question is going to be, well, how do you get paid for it? So we have a little bit of a different philosophy, and hopefully it doesn't offend you, but let's just read what's on the screen. We believe that helping small businesses enroll in the Business Accelerator program was not really intended to be a money maker. And so I know that's maybe not what you want to hear if you're a referral partner. So we have a modest, and that should be modest, not model. We have a modest revenue share. So it's not big money to a lot of you. If you look at the money that Daryl makes or DeAndre or Jeff or Keel, but regardless, we do have a revenue share for our resellers for the Business Accelerator program. So it'll put 5,000 in your pocket up front. I know, not a big deal, and then 5% of the client's capital raise. So the average client will pursue 1 million, so that'd put around 55,000 per referral in your pocket. I realize it's not the type of money you're probably used to making, but this really isn't about making you rich. It's about helping small businesses, and certainly you need to be rewarded for it. So, is 55,000 an acceptable amount for referring someone in, or is that really unacceptable? If you could type into the Q&A, I'm just kind of curious because I realize that a lot of you make a lot of money. You have lots of ways to help people and generate income, and 55,000 probably is less than your other alternatives. But Walt, what do you think? Is 55,000 fair, or is that inadequate? Tim, Stanley, Shelley, Christopher says barely acceptable. So again, I know a lot of you make a lot more money than that, but keep in mind our resellers, our average reseller, this is a side gig for them. The average reseller refers in one deal a day. So if you're making 55,000 per deal and you do that over the course of a month, I mean, it adds up. But Corinthians says it's better than nothing. Yeah, so a lot of you make so much money to get 55,000 to refer someone in is just not much, but 55,000. All right, so it's 5,000 up front, 5% of the capital raise. If the capital raise is 1 million, that adds 50,000. So 5,000 plus 50,000 is where the 55,000 comes from. All right, so we have our standard content here at the bottom. Quick cash, not really relevant to what we're talking about, but if you need quick cash, go to 509 Pacific. If you're not a reseller, but you'd like to become a reseller, it's free. There's no contract to sign, no money to pay. Just email us, support@businessparalegalcorp.com, and we can get you set up. If you need to speak to someone, Madison is your main point of contact, and you can reach out to her. We record most of our trainings and post them up on our YouTube channel. Let's see. Dominique says that he sent in 6 contracts this weekend, first weekend with us, and that's great. And so you're average, which is a good place to be. You're averaging around a deal a day, and that's what most of our resellers do. It's interesting to me. Take Keel here. He says it's acceptable income. To me, you all are fascinating to me, because to me, if you're making 55,000 per deal, you're doing an average of 1 per day. Over the course of a month, you're looking at right around $1 million in your pocket. And it's interesting. To me, this is a big deal, but to a lot of you, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. Because Mr. Green, I'm assuming you're making more than $1 million a month now, or you would express that it's a bigger deal. But I don't know what else to do. All right. So in terms of how is the 5,000 made up front, Celino asked. Well, as a reseller, we send you an editable version of the client agreement, Celino, and then you edit that agreement to have your information on it, and you pick the pricing. And so most of you are adding 5,000, so it's essentially a 5,000 payout. If that's not enough, and that's a great point, Celino, you could change it to 10,000. You could make it more if you wanted to mark it up. It's just like Walmart, right? Walmart buys peanut butter from Jiffy, and then then Walmart's able to increase the price over their purchase price to make their profit. It's the same thing with you. So that's a great point. If you are saying that you can make more than 5,000 up front from other revenue streams, then increase it. You could change that to 10,000 up front or 15,000 up front. You're in control of the pricing. Ainsley says it's a big deal for most people. Yeah, to me it is, but it's interesting on these Zooms that the feedback that you give me is 55,000, it's fair, it's okay, it's acceptable. Wow, I don't know where you all are making your six figures a week or per day, but we would love to collaborate with you as a reseller to help people. It's not about sure. Is this a formula so you can make seven figures a month reasonably without any investment? Sure. But it's not about you making $1 million a month, quite frankly. It's about helping other people. But with that being said, who else has questions, comments, concerns? Michelle said she's had trouble reaching Madison. Okay, well, I apologize for that. What I would say is call Madison. And if she's not available at the moment, leave a message, and she's really good at getting back with you. I do know that some of you will call, but your mindset is you don't leave a message. And somehow I guess you're thinking that we will call everyone back that doesn't leave a message. So if you call and leave a message, I feel very confident that Madison will call you back. Dominique is questioning. So there's no upfront cost for the client. No upfront cost for the client. Now, there is a cost to enroll in the Shelf Corp. There is a cost to enroll in the Accelerator. But instead of the client paying anything up front, they're going to get with a reseller like you. They're going to complete your agreement, which you take the editable agreement that we provide you, and then you get them under contract. You adjust the price the way that you want, and then we go get them their first tranche of financing, like we did for Miss Kim, and then they'll pay for the shelf or the accelerator out of that first round of capital. They'll go through the process, get funding, the larger business funding, and then the grant reimburses them the cost of the shelf or of the accelerator program after they've completed the process. So in the end, it's free. There's upfront no cost. There is a price attached to the shelf or the accelerator program. You pick what that amount is, and it's financed through the first tranche. Maybe that makes more sense. Christopher asked, is there a contract? Yes, so there's a different contract for the accelerator program than there is for the shelf. If you need it, just get with Madison and we can get it to you, or you can email us, whichever one you want. Addresses, Shelley's asking. So we are providing a permanent address for the clients, which was back up here in the deliverables. And frankly, that's true for both the accelerator, because again, for those of you that have been around a bit, the accelerator program and the Shelf Corp is almost the same, right? It's just the Shelf Corp is already built, already ready to go. The accelerator we're building out, but the elements within each are very similar because what? Because that's what it takes to have a fundable business. All right. Well, I think we covered most everything. We'll be back tomorrow morning if you need anything else. You can, again, you can email us if you'd like to become a reseller. You can call Madison if you have questions, comments, concerns. going back and watching the prior trainings may be really helpful, especially if you're newer to our model, because you can get more understanding of, well, what is quick cash, how does the shelf corp work, and so forth. We have trainings that are available on our YouTube channel. All right. Well, thanks everyone. I certainly apologize if we just can't earn your attention with 55,000 per deal. I get that feedback from some of you that some of you just make so much that this is almost just barely acceptable. But as a 501c3 nonprofit, our primary focus has to be in helping the clients. It's not meant to get you rich. Now, I do think that you can reasonably make an extra $1 million a month with no upfront cost, no investment, but I realize that maybe that's not enough to get your attention. So thank you so much, everyone. You have a great day, and we'll see you back tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.